Gauranga, Maharaj, would you like to sing?
Yes, we're saving some thought for the class.
Gauranga, I have a
78.
Gauranga to me,
78. In the little yellow.
Gauranga tumi more, Doyala Chalira.
Gauranga tumi more, Doyala Chalira.
Gauranga tumi Doyala Chalira.
Gauranga tumi Doyala Chalira.
Apana Gopiya
Mangalacarana
Chicken, you want to sing or? No time.
Page 120.
Shri Radha Krishna Padmanabha.
Page 120 in the little yellow sign. Shri Radha Krishna Hare Mana Kevana Vive Charama Shara
Shri Radha Krishna Hare
Shri Radha Krishna
Quick question, does this one, I mean, that's the only one?
ज्ञानातिमिरन्दस्या ज्ञानं जनाशलाकया साक्षरमिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नामश्रेष्ठं मनुमापि सच्चिपुत्रम् अत्र स्वरूपं रूपं तस्याग्रजमरूपुरीं मथुरीं गष्टावतीम् राधाकुण्डं गिरिवरं महो राधिकमधावसं प्राप्तो यस्य प्रथितकृपाया श्रीगुरुं तं नतोऽस्मि। वञ्चकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानं पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। निखिलाश्रुतिमौले रत्नमालद्युते निराजिता पदपङ्कजन्त आजीमुक्तकुलैरुपश्यामनं परितस्त्वं हरिणां संश्रयामि। नार्पितचरिं चिरकरुणयावतर्णाकलं समार्पयितमुन्नतबलरासं स्वभक्तिश्रीं हरिपुरतसुन्दराद्युतिकदम्बसन्दीपितां सदा हृदये कन्दरे स्फुरतो भासचिनन्दनः। अजानुलम्बिता भुजो कनकावदातो सङ्कीर्तनायकपितरो कमलायतक्षो विश्वम्भरो द्विजावरो जुगधर्मपालो वन्दे जगत्प्रियकरो करुणावतारो। लादिनी शक्तिस्वरूपाय Gauranga Suridaya Cha Bhakta Shakti Pradhanaya Gadadhara Namastate Nilam Bodhitate Sadasaviraha Stitam Jigam Satvayam Srimad Bhagavati Kathamadhiraya Sanjeevayam Bhatiya Srimad Bhagavatam Sadasanayana Ashrupayanai Pujayam Goswami Prabharo Gadadhara Vibhor Bhuyatmade Kaprati He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Radhe Vrindavanadishe Karunamrita Vahini Kripaya Nijapadabjadasyanmayam Pradiyatam Bhaktya Vihinaya Aparadhalakshaya Kshipta Shakamaditaranг Madhye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapanam Vrinde Namaste Charanarvindam Vrinde Namaste Charanarvindam Srila Gurudev Ki Jai Shriman Mahaprabhu Ki Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Radha Govinda Ji Ki Jai Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Pramanand Hari Hari Bol So, pranam to all of you. Good evening. Thanks so much for your presence and valuable attention, for lending your ears in the sacrifice of Harikatha, which is a yajna of its own, basically, a fire of its own. Srila Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say, I'm not asking anything from you, just give me your ears. But he knew that's the entry point and everything else will be conquered eventually. Just give me those two little holes and the whole system will collapse in time. So in this way, we are trying to be captured by that, to see through the eyes, through our ears, through Trekshita, as the Bhagavatam is saying. By proper hearing will be proper perception of reality. So we have tried to engage in this exercise the last 2 weeks in the context of Sri GAURA-KATHAMRITA, sharing some words about the immortal nectar of Sriman Mahaprabhu, specifically Gaur Tattva. We have shared here and there some lila, but specifically we concentrated on the Tattva, on the ontological position of Sriman Mahaprabhu. And today, I'd like to share some few words more about that before we continue tomorrow, conclude tomorrow with some Panihati Katha, if you will. But the last weekend, we shared some ideas regarding Mahaprabhu's position. We gave some explanation on Namo Mahavadanyaya verse. We described a little bit the unfolding in the Mangalacarana of Chaitanya Charitamrita. We tried to make an emphasis of Mahaprabhu can be seen as the giver of Krishna Lila. There is a place for seeing Krishna Lila as the giver of Gaur Lila. When Krishna Lila reaches its zenith in Rasa Panchadhyaya, Sanatana Goswami has pointed out this is the birth, if you will, of Mahaprabhu in the apex of Braj, if you will, in the apex of Krishna Lila, where Krishna finds some specific desires that he needs to fulfill, and a whole Lila unfolds as a necessity for that, so Bhagavan can fully do justice to his title of as Rasik Sekar. Srila Maharaj will say that. Krishna is known as Rasik Sekar, but actually that name becomes fully justified in the figure of Mahaprabhu, because he's tasting as Mahaprabhu all that he could not taste as Krishna Vrindavan, interestingly. And in the context of speaking about that, of course, we emphasize how Sri Gauranga Devi's Radha and Krishna combined, Mahaprabhu Sri Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nai Anya Rupa Nobjane Rajivan. But also again, Radha Bhava Dyuti Suvalitam Nomi Krishna Sarup. Actually, he's Krishna in the mode of Radha. In that sense, they are combined. It's not that they are combined in every single sense of the term. I have some fans on the audience today. So there's place for Radha in Gaur Lila, apart from Radha, the Radha Bhav that Mahaprabhu is tasting, and that's in the figure of Gadadhar Pandit. So today I want to share some thoughts mainly about that, about this unique principle of Sri Gadadhar. But of course we will continue, begin sharing some thoughts about Sriman Mahaprabhu as this ultimate manifestation of the Godhead. Of course, we know that some people, in historians or scholars, may think of Mahaprabhu just as not even as a mere saint. Some may say basically he was an epileptic who went mad at the end, and that's Sri Chaitanya. That's a pretty reductionist view. My Guru Maharaj likes to say, but if Mahaprabhu was an epileptic, we know that epilepsy is not contagious. But Mahaprabhu's so-called epilepsy, that was pretty contagious. Whoever saw him was part of the team immediately. So that's not epilepsy. Whatever Mahaprabhu showed, just he's looking at him, seeing him dancing, raising his hands, as we said, contagious, epidemic, basically. So that discarded. He was not an epileptic. He was an ecstatic, and he was not only a saint, as we mentioned, but he was not even an amsa of Bhagavan. He was not even a portion, an avatar, some aspect of God. He was not even God in the sense of Narayan, as we think of God, but he's, as we like to say, God beyond God, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, Braja Krishna, no difference from Braja Krishna himself. And even if you want to add more to the equation, he was Krishna in his most, again, upgraded moment. In that moment when he can taste something that Krishna cannot taste in Braj, interestingly. So it's Krishna in his most volcanic form. In the words of Srila Bhakti-Rakshaksidhar Goswami Maharaj, the golden volcano of divine love. That's a pretty graphic way of referring to Mahaprabhu. Like a personality erupting in ecstasy constantly, and it's lava, you say? Lava, consuming everything on its way. Try to imagine getting closer to such a phenomenon, like a golden volcano erupting constantly in Prem. Of course, the eruptions are Prem, and it's lava, is the mercy that is extending till today to us through Parampara. And this is a very interesting paradox that starts to unfold here, because in one side, Mahaprabhu is the most volcanic face of the Absolute, and in another sense, we could say Mahaprabhu is Krishna in his most needy moment, because Krishna has such strong necessity to taste Radha Bhav from these three main angles. So he's in great necessity. So we could say, when you are in great necessity, you are in a vulnerable situation. So Mahaprabhu is God in his most vulnerable moment, but simultaneously he's God in his most volcanic moment. So vulnerability is taking to empowerment. That even applies for us as sadhakas. If we express our vulnerability in sadhu sangha in the proper context, that emptying of our hearts will fill our hearts with so much empowerment coming from the mercy of sadhu. Uyakti prichati yakyati, Rupa Goswami is saying. Try to reveal your mind in intimacy, in confidence. That will create lots of empowerment. So again, Sriman Mahaprabhu again is not an epileptic, is not a mere saint, is not an amsa of Bhagavan, is not even God in a generic way, but he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or he's the Supreme Personality of Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Krishna. So he's avatari himself. He's the source of all other forms of the Godhead. And that's very clear in his Leela. And very interestingly, apart from Mahaprabhu, we don't find any other form of the divine exhibiting so many of the other forms through him. We spoke about that recently in this was what? Too many travels, sorry. North Carolina, Narsimha Chaturdasi, right? Yeah. So how Mahaprabhu will exhibit all the phases of basically all the avatars, at least the Asavatar. We connected, for example, briefly. Of course, some of the connection will be poetic, but Matsya Avatar, the fish incarnation. So how Mahaprabhu showed Matsya Avatar, Matsya would like to swim in the blue waters, and Matsya was golden. So Mahaprabhu was like a golden fish swimming in the Shyam-like waters of Radha. He was in Radhabab, swimming in the waters of the experience of Shyam Sundar. Or Kurma. Now Kurma is a turtle, and generally a turtle brings its limbs inside the body, pratyahara in yogic terms. So Mahaprabhu performed the ultimate pratyahara, especially in his Antya Lila. He was compared to a turtle sometimes, how in ecstasy all the limbs will enter and so on. So in that sense, we have the Gaur Kurma, if you will. Gaur Matsya, Gaur Kurma. Varahadev, he himself showed Varaha avatar in some moments, lifting some little earthen pot and so on. And Nrsimhadev, many ways, many leelas in which he showed Nrsimha avatar, famous one with Srivas Thakur was worshipping Nrsimha Sila, his sister Dev. And Mahaprabhu was knocking his door. At that time, the Kasi was present in some opposition, so there was some tension in the environment. And he was worshiping Nrsimha Dev, and Mahaprabhu was saying on the other side of the door, that person you are worshiping there is knocking your door now. Open. Try to imagine you are worshiping Thakurji and you hear that knock. And it was not like, it was like Nrsimha like knocking. And telling he who is in the altar is outside the altar knocking the door, open. Srivas opened the door, Mahaprabhu shows Narahari Murti. So you can imagine. And many other ways, many other moments he showed Nrsimha Dev as well. And how many times Mahaprabhu will hear Prahlad Charit from the lips of Gadadhar Pandit. He will hear once, he will say, as I always remember, Srila Bhakti Vallabh Tirtha Maharaj will say, almost shouting, Mahaprabhu will hear Nrsimha Prahlad Charit once, and he will ask Gadadhar, he will say, Prahlad Charit, that's basic. Let's jump into Rasa Panchadhyaya. No, he will hear, okay, I hear once, but he won't say, okay, let's go to the next canto, let's get quickly to the 10th canto. No, Mahaprabhu will say, again Prahlad Charit. And again, finish second time, again Prahlad Charit. Like this 108 times. Like with this showing how endless is the content of the Bhagavatam, and how much we can draw from that. Of course, Mahaprabhu was drawing, not only giving an example for sadhakas by hearing Prahlad Charit. This pastime has so many layers of meaning. One of them could be, as we said the other day, Mahaprabhu is tasting Radha Bhav, and Sri Radha in her daily avishar or attempt to meet with Krishna, she has to go through so many obstacles. Beginning at home with the dysfunctional family of Jatila, Kutila, and Abhimanyu, and all that is on the way in between her and the meeting place. So many obstacles on a daily basis, so much risk, if you will, involved. And similarly, Mahaprabhu is hearing Prahlad Charit, and Prahlad Charit is so many obstacles are there. Prahlad Maharaj, 5-year-old, and the father is the greatest demon on earth, put in so many obstacles, want to kill him over and over again. So Mahaprabhu will relate with this, hearing Prahlad's obstacles and how he overcomes, culturing his Radha Bhav, and how Sri Radha is overcoming the obstacles to meet Krishna. So there are different layers to this listening of Prahlad Charit. But anyhow, Nrsimha Dev is connected to Gaur Hari as well, Gaur Simha. She's described as Simha many times in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Then with Baman Dev, how Mahaprabhu showed Baman Dev? Well, one way we can mention that is how did Baman Dev approached Bali Maharaj? Very like in an unassuming way, very humbly, not like a dwarf. He was Baman means dwarf. Also, two names for Baman Dev is Tribikram and Urukram, but not yet. At that point, he was Baman, who means dwarf. Tribikram means he who makes 3 wondrous steps. So he started in a very small way, like a dwarf. And gradually, as we know, he expanded, and Bali Maharaj didn't know what to do. So Mahaprabhu, similarly, he started in a very dwarf-like way, very small way, approaching Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Prakasananda Saraswati, like I don't know anything, Keshava Kashmir, I'm just a fool, I don't know any, very humble, but gradually showing who he really was and converting everyone. And so in that way, we can connect him with Vaman. And with Parasuram, it is mentioned that he created like 90 rivers of blood while chastising all these corrupt governors and so on. We could say that Mahaprabhu created 16,108 rivers of tears by spreading Harinam Sankirtan and making everyone cry in ecstasy, basically, without killing anyone, as we know. And regarding Ramachandra, well, Mahaprabhu is considered as Ramachandra is Maryat Purushottam, Supreme Person showing the perfect degree of decorum, how to behave as a proper king and so on. Mahaprabhu showed that same degree of Maryat in his sannyas lila, his acharya lila. His sannyas was so, his adherence to the sannyas dharma was so intense that, as my Guru Maharaj likes to say, other sannyasis, senior sannyasis that joined him eventually, as we know, will tremble by seeing the degree of his renunciation. 24-year-old boy, but made all the other sannyasis tremble by saying, well, this person is really renounced. And Bhagavatam is describing that. Mayamrigam daita ipsitam badavat vande mahapurushati charanarvindam. 2 verses after the famous Krishna Varnam Tusa Krishnam verse. Sometimes it's ascribed to Ramchandra, but actually refers to Mahaprabhu because it appears in the context of describing the Kali Yuga avatar. Rejecting everything, taking sannyas, going to the forest, all of which seems parallel to Ramachandra, but actually applied to Mahaprabhu. Regarding to Balaram, also Mahaprabhu showed Baladev Bhav many occasions, sometimes mistaking Ganga with Jamuna, wanting to draw with Bhagas in the Lilam Braj, asking for Baroni, and being brought some water, but for Mahaprabhu that was enough to perform the Lila. Regarding Buddha, well, we could connect Buddha, Mahaprabhu, Buddha, the main message of Buddha was ahimsa. Of course, we won't connect the whole doctrine because Buddha is not preaching precisely theism, but he proposed ahimsa. So in one sense, we can connect ahimsa with compassion, and Mahaprabhu, as we mentioned already, is Mahavadanya avatar. And he didn't kill anyone, as we mentioned. Even Krishna was pretty good at killing people. Sudarshan Chakra was invoked more than once. In the case of Mahaprabhu, it almost happens with Jagai Madai, but Nityananda Prabhu was on time to remind him, not in this avatar, this is not the function. So Mahaprabhu didn't kill anyone. He didn't need to show many arms and weapons. His weapons were his raised hands in dance, his associates. That was powerful enough, if you will. That shows how much powerful he is. He doesn't need to kill. He doesn't need to. He's just killing Asuric mentality by glancing at people. Try to imagine that. Again, epidemic, contagious. Regarding Kalki avatar, well, as Kalki brings his sword and kills the Asuras, as Shastra is mentioned in Mahaprabhu again. No sword is that there, but we could say Harinam is his sword. He comes in this Kali specifically, Dhanya Kali, once in a day of Brahma, to not only kill demonic tendencies, but to Unnata Ujjvala Rasans of Bhakti Shriyam, to bestow the most brilliant type of gifts. So in this way, Sriman Mahaprabhu can be seen in connection to all these avatars as their very source, avatari. But it's Krishna himself in a very introspective moment, in a very unique project, as I like to say. He wants to taste Radha Bhav from very unique perspective. So he's in Navadvip fully absorbed in that goal. Sometimes I like to think as in a laboratory. If you are a passionate scientist, you will be in the laboratory totally dedicated to your project. So Mahaprabhu is in the laboratory of Navadvip, dedicated to taste Radha Bhav, to run behind what he is pursuing. So today we want to focus on the ultimate reasons that make Mahaprabhu successful. Because remember, in Krishna Lila, Krishna is feeling, I'm not successful. I'm not feeling I have tasted the whole range of bhava, of rasa. Sri Radha is tasting something that I do not know, but I want to taste. So for that, Mahaprabhu is manifest. Krishna's Mahaprabhu is manifesting. So who is allowing Mahaprabhu to be successful, of course, is Sri Radha, because Mahaprabhu is Krishna wanting to taste Radha Bhav. And he can only do so if she allows that to happen. So if she's not agreeing with the project, what can Krishna do? And we know she does. And she, in the Gaur Lila again, appears in the form of Pandit Sri Gadadhar. Sri Radha, in this unique form as a Pandit, a very close, intimate friend of Mahaprabhu, allowing him to be successful. So, again, as I mentioned, Mahaprabhu is Krishna in a very needy moment, in a form of vulnerability that makes him very attractive. Vulnerability is not a bad word. In this world, we are accustomed to not show that. We think, oh, that means to be weak. I have to be strong, powerful, and show my best face to everyone, especially in social media, so nobody thinks that I have a problem. But everyone's at the end of the day, between you and your pillow, you know all that is taking place there. So it's boring if everything is perfect and nice. I mean, it's terribly boring. And that's not our goal. Our goal is not perfection as our ego thinks of that. Because Srila Sri Maharaj once say that. Perfection is a demand of the ego. I want this perfect. I want to be perfect. But love doesn't wait for perfection. I mean, Sri Guru Vaishnavas are not telling you, hey, call me when you are perfect and I return and I give you mercy or whatever. Especially because you are a disaster. I mean, I'm not saying about any of you. All this goes to you. You can imagine saying all the things in class after class. Say, oh, you say all this, Maharaj. Let's see how much you walk the talk. So I have my tests, as you can imagine. But that's how love works. Again, love doesn't wait for perfection. Love actually goes where there's no perfection and brings forth perfection. I mean, that's the real perfection. Unconditional love. It's not conditional love. It's not, there's these conditions, and if you follow the conditions, I love you. That's conditional love in this world. I love you only if, long list of, long contract, and lots of small letters at the end. But Krishna, Guru, Mahaprabhu, they're breaking all that. So my point is, there is attraction in vulnerability. God himself is showing that. Someone told me once that here in the States, in Argentina, where I was born also, all those things from here eventually reached there. You have this series of Superman some decades ago, and I was told that at the beginning of the series, Superman was like an invulnerable superhero. Nothing could kill him. Super powerful always. And after a few issues, people was boring with the series because the guy was so perfect that it was like they couldn't relate. They couldn't establish an emotional bond with the character. So after a few issues, people stopped buying that. So they thought what to do. And they thought, let's make him vulnerable. And they create this, kryptonite. So then sales skyrocketed because people could relate. Oh, he's vulnerable. Oh, we are vulnerable. We can get identified and so on. So in this way, God himself appears, performs his Nara Lila, human-like pastimes, and that allows us to establish such an emotional bond. Of course, it's not that we are in the same situation, but it's similar enough for us as to relate to that and don't feel that's too different of who I am as a human. There are similar elements there. So again, Mahaprabhu is Krishna in a needy moment. Transcendental necessities. There is place for that. There is place for that due to the nature of love. On one level, we could say God is Atmaram, self-satisfied. But on another sense, we can say love is of such nature, Shastri is saying this, that it gives full satisfaction, but at the same time, it can always grow. So if it can always grow in some way, you become dissatisfied. It's never enough. You can always have more. You can always have more. It's a transcendental dissatisfaction. So that's the situation with Krishna. He's Atmaram, fully satisfied, but he has needs at the same time, in the context of being satisfied. So as we were speaking the other day, I don't remember when, where, but the dynamics of the Lila are such that on a daily basis, for example, Sri Radha Govinda, they need to get united, because if the union is not happening, they are risking their lives, basically. Of course, the Lila never ends in tragedy. No, they never die, but they are always about to die in separation from each other. That's one of the symptoms of Vipralamba. So the assistants in that situation will try to give their own lives millions of times to save their lives of Sri Radha and Krishna. That's a way to put it. In eternity, one of the services is to save the life of Radha and Krishna on a daily basis. You have to become pretty expert. I mean, because that you are expected to assist in that project. You have to save God's life every single day for eternity. I mean, if you understand that, I mean, that's humbling. It's not like, oh, I'm so great, it all depends on me. And it doesn't depend on us. But the nature of Lila is such that we will be engaged in such a unique project. They need to be saved every single day, many times per day. We need to know what to do. So similarly, in connection to Mahaprabhu in Gaur Lila, he will need proper support, proper inspiration, as he needed in Gambhira with Swarup Damodar, Roy Ramananda. They have to save Mahaprabhu's life on a daily basis by proper quoting of songs and verses and so on. So my point with this also is we have to, in a realistic way, not in a sahaja way, but we have to learn to gradually identify with those necessities, because those are real necessities. The necessities that come out of love, in which Radha and Krishna feel, I cannot survive without each other. They really need each other. And sometimes we feel my necessities to whatever, get a new model of smartphone or something. In comparison to those real necessities, what's that? So the more we identify with those necessities of service, the more we will develop an identity of a spiritual identity. One spiritual identity is the result of spiritual identification with the necessity of service. That's how spiritual identity gradually manifests, by identifying with certain necessity of service. And the more specific the idea of God, the more specific the necessity of service. Because, for example, you think about, I don't know, with all respect, but Christian tradition, they don't have a very specific idea of God. And therefore, they don't have a very specific necessity of service they will have to be attending to in eternity. You ask them, what do you plan to do in heaven? And they may not know what to say. Or maybe they will say, same thing I'm doing here, but without interruption, without karmic interruption. I like to drink orange juice, so I will be drinking orange juice for eternity without need to go to the bathroom or anything like that. That's for many, the reach of their projection, because they don't have information about who God is, what he's doing, what he needs, how can I serve in that connection. But the more specific the description of what's going on there becomes, the more specific the service necessity that we will be expected to attend. And we belong to a tradition that is very specific. Not to say the most detailed description. And that's create a great commitment for us. It's not just, oh, how nice we know all these details about the private life of the divine couple. Yeah, that's great. But you have to feel some commitment with that information. Because, of course, it's not only information that should create transformation. And if I get to know all those things, how I commit myself with that revelation. I'm supposed to do something in relation to that. It's not just cool stuff to know. or even what to speak to feel proud. I belong to such a detailed tradition where we know all these specific details of the romantic life of the God. Yeah, you belong, but that should be humbling. And you should be thinking, what's the service necessity here? And as Srila Siddha Maharaj will say, the more sincere service rendered in the moment of necessity will reward us with the highest remuneration, which is further service. We don't look for another remuneration apart from further seva. So this principle has been made many times by our Gaudiya Acharyas. Manjari serving Sri Radha in those moments, Priyanarma Saka serving Sri Krishna in those moments of need, assistance of Mahaprabhu, Bhaktivinoda Thakur making this unique statement, I want to leave my body in Kurukshetra. That's a very interesting point. Because he said that, but he never made practical arrangements for that to happen. And he could make those arrangements, but he didn't. So he was making a point, actually. And as we know, we spoke the other day on Rath Yatra, and why he said that, because in that moment in Kurukshetra, Radha is meeting Krishna, as you know, for the solar eclipse after a century of separation. Since Vrindavan is not there as the ideal playground for union, she cannot meet him. So they are so close, but they cannot meet with each other. So at that moment, she will have such a service necessity that Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, I want to die in that particular moment. So I enter in that, if you will, portal for eternity and serve her in her moment of greatest necessity. So he's making this point. So in that connection, I'm saying all this why I say Gadadhar Pandit. So this is totally connected with what Gadadhar Pandit means, which means Sri Radha serving Krishna in his moment of greatest necessity as Mahaprabhu. And since that Krishna's greatest necessity to taste Radha Bhav, whatever Krishna's necessity is, that becomes Radha's necessity. She's totally identified with Krishna's necessity. She doesn't have a separate agenda. I need this for me. Whatever I need is in connection to him. So let's speak a little bit about how Sri Radha is giving herself in Gaur Lila. So Krishna's Mahaprabhu can be successful. How Sri Radha is emptying herself, if you want to put it like that. So Krishna can be filled with Radha Bhav and make Gaur Lila a success, basically. Serving her prananath in his moment of the greatest need. So Gadadhar Pandit actually is, we could say, is one of the most mysterious figures in the whole Gaur Lila. Even if you study Chaitanya Charitamrita and other biographies of Mahaprabhu, there's not that much being said about Gadadhar Pandit. I mean, something is being said, but it's one of the most obscure personalities that you don't really know that much in a direct way. But in one sense, it's the most important one. That's a very interesting idea. The most important, crucial figure is the one you may know the less. So that further speaks about the confidentiality of this particular tattva. Because as we will see, Gadadhar Pandit is who will allow Mahaprabhu to taste Radha Bhav and be successful. We spoke the other day about Mahaprabhu being Mahavadanya Avatar. So why Mahaprabhu is Mahavadanya Avatar? Help me.
He's the most magnanimous in distributing love of Godhead.
So what he's distributing?
Not just love of Godhead, but what was it? Unnata Ujvala Rasams for Bhakti Shriyam, the opportunity to serve the divine couple in Trivardham in the mood of their maidservants.
And of course, he has tasted that before giving that. No? Mahaprabhu. So Krishna Mahaprabhu is tasting that on Unnata Ujvala Rasan, Radha Bhav and the extension of that, and giving that to others. So the point is, Mahaprabhu is most merciful because he's giving that. But before that giving, he's tasting that. And before that tasting, he's receiving that from someone else. Who is that someone else? Gadadhar Pandit. So Mahaprabhu is the most generous. Why? Because Mahaprabhu is Krishna in his most generous moment. Why? Because Gadadhar is Radha in her most generous moment, giving herself to Krishna, so he can give that to us. So in one sense, do you follow my point? I mean, this lecture is not to downplay Mahaprabhu's position, just to make it clear, but to expand the picture and see the background. As when we glorify Krishna, for sure he will be happy if we glorify Sri Radha. So here we are glorifying Mahaprabhu, but Sri Radha has to be inside the picture as well. So Mahaprabhu is entering into that bhav. Again, he's Purusha, he's Param Purusha, Supreme Person, Adi Purusha. He has Purusha bhav. Generally we speak, we are Prakriti and Bhagavan is Purusha. So our problem is that we are Prakriti, but we want to be enter into Purusha bhav. So that's our problem, exploitation. But Mahaprabhu in his Gaur Lila is teaching us that highest pleasure is not even to be Purusha. He's Param Purusha, but he's saying, I want to taste Prakriti Bhav. I want to taste the mood of being a servant. So we want to be God, but God wants to be a devotee. So he's telling us, you are understanding everything upside down. And you are a devotee, but still with some hope of being God, not being God officially, but being the center, being the enjoyer, being this, being and God himself is trying as much as he can to be a devotee. And so that's a big lesson for us sadhakas. Like, okay, there must be something interesting in being a devotee. Krishna himself is trying to do so perpetually. So in this sense, Bhagavan, as Mahaprabhu, is putting on one side his Purusha Bhav, his Param Purushotam Bhav, and embracing Prakriti Bhav, the mood of Sri Radha. And Gadadhar is personifying this greatest sacrifice, giving that so he can taste that. Para Prakriti Bhav, if you will. So this is a very interesting idea, because the highest reach of Mahaprabhu's gift, as it was mentioned just a few moments, Unnata Ujjvala Rasansa Bhakti Shriya. Mahaprabhu is tasting Radha Bhav. We cannot taste Radha Bhav, but we can taste, as the highest reach of the Sampradaya, the most immediate extension of that experience in the form of Radha Dasyam, if you want to put it in some word. So an interesting idea to consider is, okay, Radha Dasyam implies, of course, serving Sri Radha as a maid servant in Braj, but also it's an interesting parallel possibility of service for those with that affinity in Gaur Lila will be what? Radha Dasyam, how does Radha Dasyam manifest in Gaur Lila? Krishna is tasting Radha Bhav as Mahaprabhu. So our service, our Dasya in Gaur Lila to Mahaprabhu, because our relation with Mahaprabhu in Gaur Lila will be Dasya, with some Sakya, with some intimacy. So we will be serving Mahaprabhu in his tasting Radha Bhav. In Vrindavan, we will, as Manjari Sama, will be serving Sri Radha in Radha Dasyam. To Mahaprabhu, there will be a Dasyam to his experience of Radha Bhav. So we could call that Radha Bhava Dasyam. I'm trying to connect this so we don't see that one thing is here and the other thing is totally disconnected. But in Gaur Lila, we will have the chance of rendering double Radha Bhav, Radha Dasyam, because we will be serving Radha Bhava in Mahaprabhu, and we will be serving Gadadhar Pandit by her giving his vow to Mahaprabhu. We'll serving Radha, emptying herself so Mahaprabhu can taste Radha Bhava. So we have those two types of Dasyam in Gaur Lila, which the two of them can arguably be connected, presented as a form of Radha Dasyam. Serving Sri Radha in the form of Gadadhar, serving Radha Bhava in the form of what Mahaprabhu is tasting. So it's not that Gaur Lila Nitya Navadvip is devoid of the possibility of Radha Dasyam. In one sense, it is multiplied. Because again, who is Gadadhar Pandit? We could say Sri Radha in her moment of greatest necessity, where her heart, poetically speaking, has been plundered by Krishna. So there's necessity of service in that direction. And as I like to say, as I said before, why Gadadhar is Sri Radha in her moment of greatest necessity? Because Mahaprabhu is Bhagavan in his moment of greatest necessity. So his necessity becomes hers. That speaks to us a lot about the nature of love. Chaitanya Charitamrita is saying, Priti Vishayananda, Tadasrayananda, which means the Ananda of the Vishaya becomes the Ananda of the Ashray. So the Ananda of the object of love naturally becomes the Ananda of the subject of love. So Krishna is known as Vishaya, Vishaya Lambana, and Asraya Lambana. I don't want to torture with technical terms of the rasa theory. But Krishna is the object of love, and Sri Radha represents the perfect devotee or subject of love. So whatever Krishna needs, she needs. She's totally identified with Krishna's experience, as Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami very nicely depicts in his explanation to the last verse of Sikshastakam in Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Sri Radha is basically saying, if Krishna is happy embracing me, then I will be happy. Not because I'm happy, but because I know that he is happy embracing me. But if I will know that Krishna is not happy embracing me, somehow I will get free from that embrace, because I don't want to do anything that goes against Krishna's happiness. And if I know that Krishna would like to enjoy with another lady who is envious of me, I won't hesitate in becoming a maid servant at the house of that lady, so I can make the arrangements so Krishna can enjoy with her. And that will be my greatest happiness. So these are some of the examples of how much she's totally one with whatever Krishna needs. So this is happening here again in Gaur Lila. Krishna has a very specific need of tasting Radha Bhav. That's not an easy project. That's not a joke. You can see it's not the Mahaprabhu is doing that like in a weekend or something. So he needs assistance. So Sri Radha totally identifies with that in the form of Gadadhar, adopting the necessary mood. And this is a contribution of Sri Radha in the form of Gadadhar. So I like to say Mahaprabhu is Supreme Personality of Krishna, and Gadadhar is the Supreme Personality of Radha. Interestingly, Sri Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he was a worshipper of Gaur Gadadhar. So that's an interesting, that was his bhajan, how was in English, chamber of Thakur Bhaktivinoda, that's Gaur Gadadhar. And we belong to this Bhaktivinoda Parivar. Once, as you know, Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta was asked, to which Parivar do you belong? To which lineage, coming from one of the eternal associates of Sriman Mahaprabhu? Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta said, Bhaktivinoda Parivar. And Srila Prabhupada will say, my mission is the mission of Bhaktivinoda. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is kind of the founder of Krishna consciousness in modern times. So we are to really feel a very deep connection with him. And he was a worshipper. His Istadev were Gaur Gadadhar. You can go to God's room and have darshan of them. And again, Gaur Gadadhar means both Radha and Krishna in the moments of the greatest need. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur totally identified with that need, basically. I remember Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj once, he said that like the ultimate expression of Madhurya Rasa, we will find that in Gaur Gadadhar. He only said that, no further explanation, just like some cryptic statement. More about that, that will be revealed in your your bhajan. But he made the point. Now there is something unique in connection to Gaur Gadadhar. Yeah, Radha and Krishna, but appearing in a particular way, mood, again, necessity of service, and so on. So as we were speaking the other day, Krishna, he wants to taste Radha Bhav, but in Krishna Lila, he feels, I'm not up to the occasion. I need to further prepare myself. I don't have the required adhikar. So as Mahaprabhu, Krishna is engaging in sadhana, interestingly, in a very unique form of sadhana, and he's being schooled by Radha in the form of Gadadhar Pandit. Remember, Gadadhar Pandit is giving daily classes to Mahaprabhu about the Bhagavatam. Krishna is going to take Bhagavatam classes from Sri Radha. Try to imagine what classes are those. No? Let's go to the Bhagavatam class. Who will give the class? Srimati Radharani. Who will be the main hearer? Bhagavan Sri Krishna. He's learning about love. Because Bhagavatam is about that. Main topic of Bhagavatam is not Krishna, but it's Krishna Prem, which is our prayojan, Krishna Prem. So Krishna, as Mahaprabhu, is learning about Krishna Prem. So adhikar, no? The very term adhikar means adhikar. Kar means to do, and adi means in this case like up to here. So adhikar means I'm realizing till which point I can do something. You have to acknowledge your present capacities and limitations, so you do not behave beyond or below your adhikar. That's unbecoming. So somehow in Vrindavan, Krishna is realizing his adhikar. And I want to taste Radha Bhav, but I need to upgrade my adhikar for that to happen. So Gaur Lila is there, and Mahaprabhu is Krishna's, how do you say, Mahaprabhu is the solution to Krishna's lack of adhikar. When Krishna is inquiring how to acquire that adhikar, how to increase my adhikar, how to become uttam, 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 uttam. And that will be coming by Radha's grace. As we as sadhakas need to increase our adhikar by Guru Kripa, the same way, Mahaprabhu is accepting Gadadhar, if you will, as his Bhagavat Guru on a daily basis and being schooled by Gadadhar about how to properly engage in sadhana to attain success in his goal, which is to taste Radha Bhav. He has a very unique prayojan in mind. Mahaprabhu has a very unique prayojan in this lila. I want to taste Radha Bhav. So that's a very specific corresponding sadhana for that prayojan. And who is schooling him in that? Radha as Gadadhar. And that's why, again, on a daily basis, he's going to hear Bhagavat from Gadadhar Pandit. And when Mahaprabhu's experience is mature enough, the teacher will say, not like when the teacher says, okay, the student is accomplished. Okay, now you continue. You go. Like the father, we gave the example the other day, like the father teaching the child to ride bicycle. So in the beginning, the bicycle has, how do you call it?
Training wheels.
Training wheels. So the father will be next. I mean, the child won't fall. The bicycle cannot fall, but just to give moral support, the father is there, and the child is with training wheels. And eventually, okay, let's take out one training wheel, and the father is still there. Let's take out the second training wheel. Father is there, and the kid starts to ride the bicycle, and it's working. The father is still there, just in case, because the child will look, okay, dad is there. But eventually, he will be free, and his father will like disappear behind the curtain, if you will. Although he may see at the distance and rejoice, oh, my child, so nice he's riding. So similarly, Gadadhar Pandit is schooling Mahaprabhu, okay, training wheels to begin with, 1 out, 2 out, okay. At one point, Gadadhar Pandit disappears when Mahaprabhu is in the Gambhira, having accomplished the main reason for his descent. So, of course, Mahaprabhu is a teacher unto itself. As a sannyasi, he engages in his acharya lila, as we say. But also, if you become a teacher, doesn't mean that you stop being a student. I mean, the best teachers are the best students. And at one point, guru and sishya become kind of synonymous. Synonymous? Because the best teacher will be the best student, and best student will be a teacher, naturally. So I like to say, to become a teacher means just to remain a student, but from a different seat. Now the teacher has a big seat, but he won't feel, I'm no longer a student. The higher the guru, the more student, the more there will be learning still. So Mahaprabhu, this is the case. Acharya Lila, he's a teacher, world teacher, but simultaneously he's the sishya, the student of Gadadhar Pandit. Every single day hearing Bhagavat Katha from him. Well, it is said in Shastra that the very essence of all advice, Srila Rupa Goswami himself, he mentions that, Upadeshamrita and so many other places, basically to be in a sacred place in the company of those whose mood we want to imbibe. So Mahaprabhu is doing this in Jagannath Puri, residing in near Tota Gopinath and daily visiting Gadadhar Pandit, because why? He wants to imbibe that mood. This Krishna wanted to be imbibed, receive Radha Bhav samskars, if you will, impressions, so he can become successful in tasting Radha Bhav. And again, there's only one person who has that experience, and that's Gadadhar Pandit, Sri Radha. So Mahaprabhu is on a daily basis hearing from him, receiving strength into his, receiving hope, receiving new life by hearing Katha by Gadadhar. Similarly, in Braj, Krishna is receiving daily strength, at least in the eyes of the Brajavasis, of Yashoda, by whatever Radha is cooking. As we know, she has been blessed by Durvasa to whatever she cooks will give long life, auspiciousness to whoever is eating that. We were the other day reading Chamatkar Chandrik and all these pastimes in which Jatila wants at one point stop Radha from going to cook on a daily basis to Krishna because it's too awkward that married ladies going every single day to cook for single men. And yeah, it's awkward for sure. in the outside eye, it's like, why? But of course, there is a whole way of justifying that on a daily basis, and she's continued going. And as my Guru Maharaj likes to say poetically, Krishna is God weakened by love. No? Krishna is God hit by the arrows of Cupid, and he becomes like weakened. So any strength that he obtains is derived by Radha's cooking. It's another way of saying she is his Shakti. She is the one who gives him real power. No? Srila Prabhupada will say, Krishna is all attractive, but next to Radha, he is all attractive. Without Radha, he's attractive, yeah, pretty attractive. But when the two are extended next to another, then we have the all attractive, technically speaking. She makes him, in other words, all attractive. Her love for him makes him who he is. So, in a similar way, as Krishna is daily being fed by Shri Radha and receiving strength into the weakness of his love, if you will, in this Gaur Lila, Shri Radha is feeding Krishna's Mahaprabhu by giving him daily Bhagavad Katha. That should be our food, our drink, our water. That's what Parikshit Maharaj said when Sukadeva Goswami was testing his disciple. You know, Parikshit Maharaj has 7 days to live. And right before starting with 10th canto, Sukadeva Goswami is testing Parikshit in many ways. One of the ways is he summarizes the 10th canto in 2 verses. Try to imagine. Parikshit Maharaj is after 5 days waiting for that to happen, and your guru just summarizes the whole thing in 2 verses and looks at you like, okay, end of the assembly, you can bring prasad now. And Parikshit Maharaj says, no, please. And unfold these 2 verses, do something with that. And before that, Sukadeva Goswami, according to our Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his purport, Sarartha Darshini, Sukadeva Goswami will tell Parikshit, already 5 days we are speaking, and you are hearing without sleeping, without eating. You must be tired. You must be hungry. You must be thirsty. So better you take a nap and eat something, drink something. And if we have time left, we can continue. And of course, Parikshit Maharaj will say, this is my water, this is my rest, this is my food, Bhagavad Katha. I'm akanta, I'm up to the neck, and continue, please. No, I don't need any other type of food or anything. So in that way, we have to reach that point when Srimad Bhagavatam becomes our pran, our food, our life and soul, sustained by that. So Mahaprabhu is giving that example, sustaining his life, his hope, his ideal by hearing daily Bhagavad Katha from Gadadhar. And that, ruminating on that, chewing that, no? As the Bhagavatam is saying, Puna Punas Charvita Charvananam. Of course, in another context, Prahlad Maharaj is describing material life as chewing the chewed. But we have to do the same thing with Harikatha. Srila Gurudev has chewed something that received from someone who has chewed that, a new juice is coming, it's given to us. We have to do something with that Maha Prasad and ruminate on that and so on. So, in this way, Sri Gadadhar Pandit, if you properly understand his position, his glory will outshine the glory of Mahaprabhu, technically speaking. That's a very unique idea. At the very end of the Gaur Lila, in the Sikshastakam, I think we spoke that the other day, the 8 verses are presented in sequence in the last chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita. And in the 8th verse, interestingly, what does Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami say when he quotes Aslisha Bapadaratam Pinashramam, etc.? He says, this verse was spoken by Radha. He's not saying Mahaprabhu spoke this verse. The other verse, he said Mahaprabhu said. Last verse, this verse was spoken by Radha, like implying Mahaprabhu did it. He tasted Radha, but he was successful. There is a happy end to the story. I mean, the Gaur Lila is reaching its end there, the description. So at that point, Mahaprabhu is bathing in the glory of tasting Radha Baba, and all of us are celebrating that along with him. But if you pay even closer attention, you realize, where's Gadadhar at this point? Gadadhar has totally disappeared into the background. In total Gopinath, not approaching Gambhira, but at the distance, allowing all that to happen. Sri Radha having given her bhav to Mahaprabhu, and now Mahaprabhu is successful by the mercy of Gadadhar. So if properly understood, the unassuming and humble, totally disappeared position of Gadadhar, which is allowing the whole Gaur Lila to be successful, properly understood, Gadadhar's position is the most glorious of all. And interestingly, one more thing in this connection, of course, we can say Mahaprabhu was successful in tasting Radha Bhav, but also we can say, but you can never taste the fullness of Radha Bhav, because that's a bottomless ocean. It's not that, okay, I already tasted everything. There's nothing else to know. There's no end to that. So how to resolve that? Well, we have Gaur Lila in eternity in Golok, Nityanavadu. So there you have Krishna eternally dedicated to taste Radha Bhav forever, because it's never enough. On one level, he was successful, but his success on earth gave him this insight. No, I need an eternal Lila for this. This is not enough. That's the nature of love. That's my point. If you say, now that's what it says in Prema Samput, Sri Radha is mentioning, the nature of love is that nobody will say, I love you. If someone says, I love you, for many reasons, they know nothing about love. Because to begin with, if you really love, you will realize how much more you can love. So you will be never saying, I love that person already. No, if you really love, you say, oh, how much more love can I have? So I do not dare to say, I love you. Of course, also the mood of Nayika and Parakya Bhav is indirect speech also. So in indirect speech, Paroksha Bhav, Vyanjana Briti, was suggested meaning, they will never say outwardly, you will never read Krishna Radha, I love you, I love you. It's not the nature of Parakya Bhav. It tends to hide itself, to be indirect, to seem the opposite. And also, someone who loves each other will never say, I love you, because there's no longer a sense of, I love you. There's no sense of separate two people, but the two of us become one. In love, in the union in dynamic sense. So in this way, there's an eternal Gaur Lila where Mahaprabhu will be tasting that. So as we mentioned in these other classes, we say that, of course, Gaur Lila is eternal. We somehow speak about that as it begins at some point, but it's eternal reality. So in that sense, we could say, okay, Gaur Lila is the solution to Krishna's need, because Krishna was so indebted with Radha's Bhav, he's feeling, okay, as Mahaprabhu will try to preach the glory of Radha to make devotees for her, I will try to pay something of my debt. But now as Mahaprabhu, he's realizing the bottomless ocean of Radha's Bhav, and he realizes, I'm further indebted now. There's no end to my debt. I'm realizing how much more I owe. So what's the solution to that? Create another Leela so he can still try to repay? No, he's totally indebted and overwhelmed by that in a transcendental way. So what to do? Again, we have some opportunity for render some service in eternity, to coming onto the scene in Gaur Lila, and try to receive some service and preach the glories of not only Mahaprabhu, but offer some intimate service to Sri Gadadhar Pandit, to help Gaur to decrease his enormous debt of divine love. Again, we are nobody. We should, in one sense, as Srila Sridhar Maharaj would say, we are so insignificant that we are bordering non-existence. Like to invite us to be humble for a moment. No? We are all on the shores of non-existence. That's how atomic your constitution is. But at the same time, you are so infinitesimal, but at the same time, you are offered such a gift, such a prospect of relieving and assisting the highest reality in the moments of greatest necessity. I mean, you put these two things combined, and hopefully you faint, minimum. I mean, this is astonishing to make this contrast, who I am and what's the nature of the gift, and who I am, but what's the nature of the gift. And I mean, on a daily basis, we should always remember this type of things, to remain inspired, to remain humble and grateful. So in this way, we can see how Gadadhar Pandit is a crucial ingredient, if you will, in this Gaur Lila, Sri Radha appearing as Gadadhar, allowing indeed Mahaprabhu not only to taste Radha Bhav, but even from the beginning of the Lila, allowing many other things. Because, for example, and with this I will conclude, for example, Mahaprabhu in his Prakat Lilas, he was not a Vaishnava from birth. I mean, he was not behaving as a Vaishnava. He was more a logician, grammarian, and everyone in Navadvip loved him. But the only regret they had was, only if Nimai Pandit will become a Vaishnava. He's so incredible, so beautiful, such a genius, but he's not a devotee. He's torturing the devotees. He's running after them, challenging to debate about, oh my God, and all the devotees running from him, and he running after them. They're like, and at one point they say that Gadadhar Pandit, who is a Pandit, you have Pandit Gadadhar and Pandit Nimai. So Nimai Pandit will see Gadadhar coming, and Gadadhar has more of a Bhamya nature, like a right-wing, Dakshin nature, right-wing nature, like passive, like submissive, not like Radha in Bhamya's nature in Krishna Lila. Here they're switching for the necessity of the Lila. And Gadadhar is calm, and Nimai comes like in a harassing, how do you say? Harassing. Gadadhar, like, give me a definition of mukti, like inviting to debate immediately. And Gadadhar is like, once again, not again. And Gadadhar very timidly says, okay, like, whatever, some basic definition. Atyantika dukkha nivriti, famous aphorism, like mukti means to be free from all suffering. Like implying, okay, over. Mahaprabhu said, no, I'm not satisfied with that definition. I give you 24 hours and bring me a better definition of that, and we will speak tomorrow at the same time. And Gadadhar is like, no. And he starts to pray. May Nimai Pandit become a Vaishnava. May Nimai Pandit. And everyone in Nimai, now it was in a prayer chain of prayer. May Nimai Pandit. And eventually he becomes a Vaishnava. As we know, he becomes the best of Vaishnavas. But we could say all that started by the prayers of Gadadhar Pandit. May Krishna become, that's the attempt. As Mahaprabhu, Krishna wants to be a Vaishnava. Of course, he wants to be the best Vaishnava, he wants to be Radha. But we have to begin somewhere. So at the beginning, he becomes a Vaishnava. Eventually, he becomes the Vaishnava, the Vaishnavi. But even in the very beginning of his becoming a Vaishnava, Gadadhar Pandit is there being instrumental. And then when he accepts Diksha from Ishvara Puri, also Gadadhar Pandit is instrumental there, because Gadadhar Pandit is learning from Ishvara Puri about the book he wrote, Krishna Lilamrita, and eventually Mahaprabhu joins the assembly, and there is some connection between the two. So my point is, from the very beginning of Krishna performing his lila as a devotee to his very end of becoming the devotee, Sri Radha, Gadadhar Pandit is being the topmost facilitator, if you will, of that experience. Sri Radha accompanying her beloved in this unique experiment, if you want to put it like that, in this unique transcendental laboratory of tasting Radha Bhav. So, like my Guru Maharaj likes to say, the success of Mahaprabhu in his Leela from beginning to end, and our success in Gaur Leela, in connection to that, the success lies in the outstretched hands of Gadadhar Pandit, who is giving himself fully to Mahaprabhu. If you see the deities of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Gadadhar Pandit is in this mudra. Nityananda Prabhu, in some deities, you will see also in this mudra. But there are different implications. Nitai is fully giving Gaur to everyone. But Gadadhar Pandit is fully giving himself, his Baba, to Gaur. So he can be successful. So that's this implication, full giving, in this case of oneself. So, and of course, by extension, Gadadhar Pandit is Sri Radha in this generous disposition, giving himself, herself to us. So anyhow, some words in connection to Sri Gadadhar Pandit and to the principle of projecting ourselves to serve in service of Sriman Mahaprabhu, Sri Gadadhar, and so many associates in Nitya Navadvip. To speak about Nitya Navadvip, that's a whole different series of lectures and to go through the Ashtakaliya Lila in Nadia and all the different experiences there. That's another journey altogether, maybe in some other occasion. But today so we wanted to have some glimpse of the tattva underlying the Lila in Navadvip, in Gaur Lila having its corresponding Gaur tattva. So tomorrow we will continue by going a little bit more to the Lila dynamics and immerse ourselves in the Panihati festival and how all this tattva that we have been explaining these last three days plays itself out in Lila, in the interaction between Mahaprabhu and, in this case, his devotees like Raghunath Das Goswami, Nityananda Prabhu. But we will speak tomorrow about that. Panihati Mahotsav will be celebrating tomorrow. So I don't know if there are any. We have time for if there are any questions before finishing.
Yes, I heard one particular statement in the past that service becomes dynamic when one takes responsibility and decides that I will do this service, and then one gets the inspiration for that service to continue for 30 years. And so then you have the thought that without myself doing this, Krishna won't be happy. Krishna needs me to make garlands. He won't be happy. I have to make garlands. You take that force. You don't wait for anyone to come and help you. So how do you just pick something that you like and eventually take responsibility, or like do you just wait for like somehow or another Krishna arranges for you?
Yeah, of course, when we speak about service, we were speaking about that today also. It's important that we think deeply about the meaning of that, because actually the term service in Sanskrit generally is seva, and seva has to do with giving pleasure to the object of our affection, because sometimes we can reduce the word service to just doing stuff. You follow, no? Like some hyperactive dynamics, like if you are not washing the pots or doing something really external, you're not doing service. Or if there's not something that I can see with my eyes, you are chanting japa only. You're studying Shastra, you're just sitting there. Mahaprabhu was sitting for the last 12 years of his life, only sitting. Only, quote unquote, sitting. What's going on inside. You know? So my point is, service, in one sense, is more connected to our inner attitude than what we are doing. I mean, to hear Harikatha is service. Srila Prabhupada will say in one of his purports, the most important service that the disciple can render to his guru is to chant Sri Nam. To chant, to follow the committed number he accepted of japa with his guru. He made that point. But sometimes I've seen that devotees do not generally see chanting japa service. Interestingly, a service to their guru. And that's very important. When you are sitting to chant japa, you are engaging in guru seva. It's important to create this connection. This is not that just guru seva means Gurudev physically coming and I will make the garland and I will cook and wash his clothes. Of course, that's also great, beautiful. Bapu seva. But Bani is in one sense more essential because it's not dependent on the guru's physical presence. And at some point, the guru won't be physically present. So that will be a big test for you. Where is your seva connection? I remember once, some disciples of Srila Prabhupada went after Prabhupada passed away, they went to Srila Bhakti-Rakshakdev Goswami, as you may know, and they told him the news. Our Guru Maharaj has entered Nitya Lila. And Srila Maharaj said, among other things, okay, now we will see who is a real disciple. Let's see if you pass the test of separation. Like, let's see how much you are connected with your guru by seeing how much you remain connected with your guru without the physical presence. Because connection with the guru is not about physical connection, physical proximity. Anugatya doesn't mean physical proximity. Pranipat, tadvidi pranipatina, surrender to Sri Guru. So I'm saying all the things because if we have a proper attitude and connection, service to our guru can be everything we do. Of course, sometimes Gurudev will ask us something in particular, But if that's not coming, everything that we can do, hopefully, is as a service to him. Everything. I mean, the potential is there. Of course, you have Swarup Siddha Bhakti, but you have Sangha Siddha Bhakti, and in the sense of you do not only engage in the main angas of Bhakti, Shravan, Kirtana, and so on, but you can, how to say, pour all your activities with Bhakti. You can have a shower and make that Guru Seva. If you have the proper conception, you are not taking a shower. You are taking care of your sadhaka deha, so it's become fit for Guru Seva. So it's just the way of adjusting your angle of vision, how you are conceiving things. Because if not, if you don't have proper conception, you may be even chanting, doing archan, but that's not Guru Seva, if there is no proper conception. So I like to emphasize that, because sometimes we may be like expecting, okay, a specific service, or like my guru will come and give me a mission, or we're revealing a dream, and like some extraordinary stuff has to happen, and we are losing sight that the extraordinary stuff is already happening. Every single day that I have the chance of chanting and hearing katha and trying to increase my bond, my connection, my identification with what I've received. I remember once I always share that because it's connected. Once I was with with my Guru Maharaj, and I felt the inspiration. It came to ask him, Guru Maharaj, what's that thing that I could do that will please you the most? I don't know. The idea came, and I asked that. Like, if I thought, well, he may say something, I will try like to, okay, take that. And he says something, and I'm still trying to take that. So I asked him, Guru Maharaj, what was that thing that I can do that will please you the most? And he told me, try to increase your commitment with the ideal. That was his reply. So I was just like, okay, I've received service for eternity. Trying to increase your commitment with the ideal you have received. I mean, he didn't say just wash the pots. No, sometimes we expect that. Tell me what to do, I do it. Okay, I did it. Finish. I'm pleased, my Gurudev. No. This is a connection with someone who once approached Srila Siddhar Maharaj similarly. They asked, Guru Maharaj, can you give me some service? And this devotee, in his naivety, was thinking he will tell me, I don't know, print one book, collect this money, open a temple, wash this. And Srila Siddhar Maharaj, he replied to give me service. He said, change your angle of vision. That was a service. Try to imagine. No? You have to be careful when you approach those personalities, no? Because they may give you service forever. What can I do? Try to change your angle of vision. If you try to change your angle of vision to the point that you realize that everything is a service opportunity, and you no longer will be asking for service. That's technically the ultimate vision. Everything is service opportunity. It's not, can I do service? If you're asking that, means that you are not doing service before asking that? How you are seeing reality? No? Anyhow, some thoughts in that connection. Are we ready for the Arctic? Okay, one more question in the
So what is the significance of the name, Gadadhara?
There's some interesting thoughts about that. No, Gadadhar, of course, is the name of Vishnu, which means the one who holds Dhara, the Gada. Gada means like the, how do you say in English? Like the club. Thank you. So the club holder, which of course is more Aishwarya-like name, you could say. So in one sense, you could say there's not, which is the connection. And of course, one could say, okay, as Vishnu holds the club, in Braj, somehow Radha has a club, and not literally, but she knows how to chastise Krishna, if you will. So that's one point we can make. But also, interestingly, as you know, sometimes the Sanskrit will lend itself to that, especially with the sandhi, or the words that, anyhow, one letter can be part of one section or the other. So you can say ga, gada, gada, dhar, or you can say Gada Adhar. And in this case, Adhar means poison. So sometimes the poetic rendition of this is like, of course, Srimad Bhagavatam is described as nectar, but sometimes nectar is connected with poison. It's a mixture of the two of them, union, separation, and like drinking hot sugar cane, and they're just externally it seems poison, but internally. So in one sense, we could say Gadadhar Pandit is serving on a daily basis Mahaprabhu this poison cup by instructing him on Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a form of poison, if you want to put it like that, in the sense that it kills certain things but allows other things to live and so on. So I like to land in that connection. Of course, one could say in a more general way that's the name of Vishnu, and everyone born in that society receives those types of names. Srivas is also the place of residence of Lakshmi. Of course, in a more esoteric way, you will say Srivas is the owner of Sriva Sangam, and Sri ultimately is Sri Radha, and in Sriva Sangam, Radha Bhav comes to the fore in the Rasa Kirtan every night. So one can read all these names in a more esoteric way, or one can read them in a more like social dynamics of the time. Everyone receiving the name of Vishnu, there is place for that. So yeah, something in that connection with Gadadhar, in connection to Radha, in connection to his speaking the Bhagavatam. So we are ready for Arctic, so we'll stop here, and tomorrow morning we will finish our series with Panihati Mahotsav Katha. Srila Gurudev ki jai, Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Shri Guru Gauranga Radha Govinda Ji ki jai, Shri Gadadhar Pandit ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premananda Devo. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyaiva chavatītānaṁ pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananda koti vaishnava vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premananda Hari Bol.